like to say a few words about something not on the agenda? The answer apparently is no. All right, so then the next item is approval of minutes, August 8th, 2019. Are we in a position to approve?
Yes,
All right, motion to approve.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Abstain.
Okay,
I'm
so
going to
it's,
abstain also, I wasn't here for the meeting.
all right, so it's 4-0-2. All right, okay, so we're all the way down to item 4. We have a request for certificate of compliance, 126 Wilmington Road, Derek and Lisa Coughlin, DEP file number 122-522. Anyone here for that item? No. All right, so, John, any explanation?
So this was an order of conditions that was issued for an residential addition. The project was never completed. The order of conditions has expired. The property has been sold, and a new project, there'll be a new notice of intent for this property. So this is just to get the order of conditions off the deed.
All right. Any discussion? Motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 126 Wilmington Road, DEP file number 122-522.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. 6. Okay. All right, so. All right, we're on item 5A. Notice is given, the commission will hold a public meeting during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Indu Tanya and will be acted upon by the commission. The commission will take information relating to the proposed construction of an addition, a deck, a retaining wall, which is within riverfront area located at 29 Wheatland Street, and will thereafter issue a determination of applicability. The application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The application is available for public review in Conservation's office. Someone here for that one? Come on up. You, please take a seat.
Would you like to
Have a seat.
sit right in the front here?
All right. So the way we do this is you just state your name for the record and where you live, and then you can say whatever you would like about what you're doing.
My name is Indu Taneja, and I live in 29 Wheatland Street, Burlington, Mass.
Okay, and what would you like to do with your
I
project?
want to have some addition. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was brief, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Eileen?
Well, she wants to build an addition to the house and a deck and also a retaining wall. So there's going to be grading in the backyard. And it's really the retaining wall that brings this project into the riverfront area. The house itself doesn't touch it, but the wall and addition are going back about 70 feet. So it's still well in the outer riparian of a regulatory stream. So I'm not really concerned about it causing any issues.
All right, so on the left, anyone have any questions at all on this one? Anybody?
It's quite distant from the,
On the right, anyone have any questions? No. All right. Anyone in the audience have a comment or a question? 29 Wheatland Street.
So I actually forgot to mention that the project had begun last year, and it didn't happen to go through conservation, and there was a stall. So there's a little bit of work done in the backyard.
Yep.
And I had them install erosion controls so that they could go ahead with their project, but it doesn't seem to have gone any further. I just wanted to tell you that.
That's fine, thank you. Okay, we have a decision, a negative conditional determination. We'll just ask for a few conditions to be adhered to. And we'll do a quick review and then we'll vote on it.
Okay. So the applicant proposed to construct an addition and deck. The project also involved grading and leveling the backyard and installing a retaining wall. In July, conservation staff determined the work was already underway, made a visit, and required installation of erosion controls and required the owners to file retroactively. The work was located within the outer riparian of a regulated stream, located behind the property and to the southwest. So the conditions, Indu, are on the back of the sheet. It just says that this is giving you permission to go ahead with the project as described. The erosion controls that your contractor installed have to stay there for the duration of the project. No additional work other than planting of native trees or shrubs shall be permitted beyond the erosion control line without approval from the Conservation Commission or staff. All construction or demolition materials shall be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. No stockpiling of soil or other materials within 50 feet of wetlands. No tracking sediments onto public roadways shall be allowed. If tracking occurs, you have to keep the roadway clear. No filling or grading or significant grading of the property other than the grading that we're actually allowing under this decision. Pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides should not be used within wetlands or 100 feet of wetlands unless otherwise approved by the Conservation Commission. And this just also states that the Conservation Commission members or representatives may enter the property just to check on proceedings.
Okay. Are there any questions on this at all? Okay, you can always ask questions later anyway. Okay, it's not a problem. All
She
right,
has our number.
so, any comments to the conditions? No. Could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project at 29 Wheatland?
So moved.
Second? Okay. All those in favor? 600. You're all set. Thank you very much. You'll get some paperwork in the mail, is that
Yep,
correct?
that's correct.
Yeah. Sure thing. All right. Item 5B is up now. We have notices given the commission will hold a public meeting, during which time we have another request for determination of applicability filed by Stephen Nadone. The commission will be taking information related to the proposed removal of an in-ground swimming pool within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland. It's located at 15 Geddick Road. The application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and this application is also available for public review in Conservation's office. Someone here for 15 Geddick Road? Come on up. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, the way this is done is like the last person, you state your name for the record, state where you live, which is probably obvious, and...
Actually, it's not obvious. I'm James Russo Jr.,
Ah.
the son of the James Russo, the Geddick Road owner,
Oh, okay.
here on his behalf. Contractor couldn't make it, Steve Nardone. But as you read, my parents have had an in-ground pool for 45 years, and it's in disrepair, very much so. So we're looking to have it completely removed and clean fill brought in and graded and seeded.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so, Eileen, are you taking this one?
Yes, so this, there is a wetland at the end of the property, quite close to the pool, but down a fairly significant incline. Hence the filing. But in this particular case, I have no particular concerns with the project because it's going to be represent an improvement in that it's removal of impervious and replacement with lawn.
Right. Okay. Do you have any concerns over this, then?
No.
All right. All right, on the left, anyone have questions on this one?
The only concern is that when the contractor does the work, that he, does it from the existing lawn side, not from the wetland side, so where he wants to have his equipment above that. And then just that all that waste should be disposed of kind of as he does the work, rather than being piled up and potentially, running off into the wetland.
Okay.
And given the slope there, there should be some appropriate erosion controls, which will say in the documentation.
Right. All right, anyone else on the right? Got it. What? You're all set?
I'm set.
You're all set? All right. Anyone in the audience, this one's at 15 Geddick, a comment or a question? Neighbors are not here.
I'm here, but that's, it would be
Separate matter.
But you're across the street, right? Okay. Okay,
I know the pool well.
right. All right, so if there's nothing further, we'll review a brief decision that basically says if you adhere to a few conditions, we're not expecting any problems, so we'll review it and then vote on it. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, in this case, I'm going to edit the first part where it said that Stephen Nardone lives at 15 Geddick, because that's incorrect. So the correct version will have his address, since he was the applicant.
Yes.
So as we said, the applicant proposed to fill in an in-ground pool, pool deck and fence, and remove the pool deck and fence and seed with grass. The work was located within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland located at the rear of the property. The proposed work was approximately 20 feet from the BVW. Commission voted to issue a negative determination of applicability. And the conditions are that the decision is for work as outlined in the application. Prior to beginning any construction on site, sediment barriers shall be installed and inspected by conservation staff. Barriers shall be installed across the back of the lot at the top of the slope. All construction or demolition materials and excavated soil shall be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. There should be no stockpiling of soil or other materials within 50 feet of wetlands unless previously approved by conservation staff. No tracking of sediments onto public roadways shall be allowed. In the event tracking does occur, sediments shall be swept daily. No filling or grading on the property beyond what is required for the approved work. And the grade shall not be altered beyond what is shown on the plan. Debris, sediment, lawn clippings shall not be dumped in the vegetated wetlands, and anything that does fall in there should be removed by hand. And no pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides should be used within 100 feet of wetlands. And as with the previous one, this also allows Conservation Commission members or designated staff to just check on the project as it's ongoing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the decision?
No.
Are you all set with the decision, the way it reads? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project at 15 Geddick Road under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you don't have to
Jamie.
stay.
So anyone, once you're,
No, you're,
You can go,
you
sorry.
can go, you're all done. Unless you want to,
Unless you want to stay.
Wait, can I go? All right.
all right, have a good evening. Sure, bye-bye.
No, I know. I've been told. I told Bill, yeah.
I almost thought that she found what we do fascinating.
No.
No such luck. No such luck.
Well,
All right, so the next one, let's see, is item 5C. Notice is given, the commission will hold a public meeting, during which time we have another request for determination of applicability filed by Kelly L. Higgins. The commission will be taking information related to the proposed installation of a drain pipe within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. The project is located at 20 Geddick Road. The application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and the application materials available for public review in Conservation's office. Hello,
Hello, I'm Kelly Higgins.
nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
And therefore, I assume you live at 20
I
Geddick.
live at 20 Geddick Road. Yes, I grew up at 20 Geddick Road.
Did you really?
And when my parents passed away, I bought the home.
Ah,
So I am asking permission to insert in my lower backyard. We have a very large backyard, and it slopes down and then goes up again back to where my dad had a shed and garden and whatnot. But the lower backyard, in the last 4 or 5 years, has taken on water from an existing, a neighbor who cut a lot of trees down, and they have a sunken yard, and then when the water overflows from rain or snow, it's coming into my lower backyard and affecting my ability to cut the lawn or go to the shed from like, almost like November, depending on how much rain we get. But there's, like pooling of water down there. And on my side property of the home, there's a 20-foot easement that's been there. It runs the whole length of Geddick Road, and then it comes down under the ground between 18 and 20, I'm 20, and then it crosses under the street and goes all the way down Geddick Road. So that easement has always been there. So in order to try and solve my problem, I talked to Saltbox Nursery. I was looking for somebody to basically try to, because we can't fill it in. We already know that. The neighbor next door who has the water
Right.
has come to the Conservation Committee. The
Yeah.
water is in their backyard, way back, and they can't fill it in. Obviously, it affects everybody else. So they propose, the idea of laying a pipe underground, like a French drain, so to speak, and let the water, still not gonna leave me dry, but just so that I don't have puddles, so I can get out to the shed and whatnot, and run it into the easement. So that's my proposed plan.
Okay. All right. Eileen, you have some comments?
As Kelly described, there is wetland in the way back of the next door property, and there have been historic issues with drainage just in our records over the years. I don't really have any concerns about the project as she describes. It would potentially put water into the easement that ultimately drains into the wetland near the other gentleman's house. I'm not sure how effective it will be, because it is, the back of those two properties are probably pretty wet. But I don't have any concerns about it.
Okay. On the left, Indra, anything? Gail, anything on this one? Bill?
No.
John? No. All right, Ed?
No, let's hope that it works.
All right.
Too.
All right, anyone in the audience for this one? 20 Geddick Road. No. All right, well, then we have a few conditions that if you adhere to, there should not be a problem. We'll do the same as the last one. We'll review them, and then we'll vote on them.
Okay.
So, Eileen?
Okay, as we described, the applicant proposed to attempt to approve drainage in lawn area behind the house by installing a 12 by 12 inch, it says foot, but it should be inch, drain box, leading to a 4-inch pipe in a 12-inch trench, all of which were wrong. I'm sorry, that'll get fixed.
Okay.
The pipe would be surrounded by 3/4 inch trap stone and would discharge to the existing drainage easement at the left side of the property. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. However, the Conservation Commission makes no findings as to the exact boundaries of the wetland resource on site. So under the part about the decision on the next page, Kelly, are the conditions,
Yep.
which basically are more or less the same as you've already heard twice this evening. The decision is only for work outlined in the project description. No trees or shrubs in the 100-foot wetland buffer zone or wetlands shall be removed for this project. Any excavated materials not reused on site shall be disposed of off-site in a legal manner and shall not be dumped beyond the approved erosion control boundary. No debris, sediment, or lawn clippings should be dumped in the wetlands, and anything that is dumped in there should be removed by hand. No filling or grading on the property. Under this decision, the grade of the existing lawn shall not be altered, and all existing drainage patterns shall be maintained. No tracking of sediments onto public roadways, and if that occurs, it must be cleaned. No stockpiling, refueling, or overnight parking of trucks shall be permitted within 50 feet of the wetlands, and as before, members of the Conservation Commission or their representatives reserve the right to check on proceedings during this project.
So I have a question. I want to know, I never saw the map of the wetlands, so I know there's existing water on 22 Geddick Road, in their backyard. So where is my property in the wetland area as well? what I'm trying to figure out. I never ascertained that information.
I think on the wetland maps, it just shows it really being on your neighbour's property. Some of your soil seemed pretty soggy, but I don't have any other. And
Because, I mean, there's always been a garden back there, and until this neighbor did major tree destruction and whatever else they did, you know, I never had the problem. I mean, I grew up there, I'm gonna be 60 next month, so I never had the problem until that occurred. So even Saltbox wanted to know, well, are you really in wetland area? You know, but I just was curious, because my siblings are asking the same question, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, this particular item on the agenda is not finding a wetlands line. We're not looking at soils, we're not looking at vegetation at this point.
Right.
We're just helping you along with your project so that you can see if you can.
Right, I mean, I wouldn't be digging anything up but a channel anyway, or cutting down trees anyway. I'm just trying to lay a drain to drain the water.
That's right.
best I
And that's all we're handling here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but the point you do bring up is that when people cut trees, and there are a lot of homeowners and property owners that want to cut trees and do cut trees, there is sometimes consequences relative to how much water is not taken up now, and,
Right, I mean, I don't blame the guy, I mean, I don't think he probably didn't realize what it was gonna do. I didn't realize it, but it took me 2 days to realize what he was doing out there. I could hear the saw running until finally I could see all these trees were taken down. Obviously, it left a consequence to me, and, you know, I just want to be certain that they're not going to be able to fill that low land in now that the water sits in, because that, again, would impact me further. Is that to be a guarantee? or what?
They would have to come to the
Town?
come to the commission, or at least through the Conservation Department, if they wanted to do something like that. And I'm pretty sure the Conservation Commission would not allow them to fill wetlands.
Right. And I mean, you know, they've already proposed that. They asked me, well, maybe we could just fill it in. I said, no, we can't. But, you know, I know that that's been out there and mentioned to the neighbor on the other side of them, that they were gonna have to look the other way while they filled it in. So I'll just come to the town, shall that happen? I mean, what is the consequence if they do something like that? Do they get fined, or they have to dig the soil out? That's my concern.
well, if it turns out that something is a serious violation against either the Burlington bylaw or the State Wetlands Protection Act, or both, then there would be an enforcement action that would ask them to provide a remedy. We would either specify it, or they would have to hire a wetland scientist, and we would have to retroactively go back and look at where their wetland line was.
Right.
And it would take quite a while, and it could be quite expensive for them.
Okay, well, I just, again, everybody's saying, you know, you better make sure as soon as you see them fill that in, that you go to the town, but I'm
Actually,
curious as to.
before they
I'm
fill it in.
spending- Huh?
Before they fill it in, when you see the truck starting to pull up
Right, well, I
outside.
mean, I'm trying to help my own situation, and I know that they're stuck for they're stuck for their own problem unless they figure something else out. But I just want to be sure that after I try to alleviate my problem, that, again, he knows that he can't fill it in, they know they can't fill it in, but that doesn't mean that they won't try to, I guess is my point. So
Have you talked with your neighbor about it?
Well, when I told him that I was gonna look into having a pipe run, he's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I said, I'll try to see if they can help you, include you in the thing. Now, he has a huge puddle of, you know, a huge gaping hole, and Saltbox said, there's no way we can drain that, you know. So then they were upset, but before we even got that far, when I said, oh, you know, the Saltbox is coming out in a couple of weeks, oh yeah, how are we gonna fill it in without anybody? I'm like, no, we're not gonna fill it in. We're going to get, you know, so, you know, he's basically suggested that a few times, plus the neighbor at 24 Gaddick told me, oh, you know, they said, look the other way, we're gonna fill this in. And, you know, that was like a year and a half ago, whatever. Of course, they haven't done it because they know they can't. They've come to the town, they found that out, but again, will they do that? Who knows? And I'm trying to know, like, what happens if it does?
We usually don't have a problem with people that have come and we've told them no. It's usually when they don't come.
Right.
So I think you'll be okay.
I hope so. Well, yeah, I just hope so. But anyway, okay. So, yeah, so, you know, they know they can't fill it in. they, you know, their property goes lower than mine, you know, putting a drain in is not gonna help them drain. You know, their hole is huge, and where the drain is gonna lay, you know, even if it could help them, it would help, you know, the first eighth of of the hole, not even the, it's a huge circle of, because the people before them were trying to put a pool in, the town stopped that, and then they bought the house, and then he cut down, every tree that was in that hole, plus some, and then now that's where all the water sits, so anyways, that's their problem, and hopefully they're not gonna try to fill it in with,
Keep in mind, though, that even though you may see a wetland line on a map or from a wetland scientist demarcating it, it's not only the wetland, but there's a buffer zone around it that is also jurisdictional for us. The
Right.
first 20 feet beyond that cannot be disturbed, and the first 100 feet requires permission to do any disturbance. So 100 feet's quite a distance. So just because the wet stops there, the rest of the yard is probably jurisdictional as well.
yeah. I mean, they've already done some other work there that, without a permit, and they're, practically sitting on their actual wetlands, which is, again, their problem, but affecting me, and, anyway, so, okay, so I'm all set then?
All right.
Can I proceed then, or do I need to get any other papers before they, start the project? Because I was hoping to get,
You will get the actual formal paperwork next week.
okay, mail to you,
Yes, or you can come pick it up on Monday if you want.
one of the other, okay. All right, thank you very much, folks,
Sure
I
thing.
appreciate it.
Take care, have a good evening. All right, so the next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing. This is a notice of intent that was continued 1 to 3 Great Meadow Road, Town of Burlington, DPW. It's to demolish the existing structure and construct a new DPW facility. Good evening.
Larry, did we vote on that
No
last?
big horse and pony show
Vote
this.
on that last
Hold on
one?
1 second, what?
We didn't vote on that last one.
You didn't vote on that.
Oh, okay. All right, let me take care of
Thank you.
All right, could I have,
Somebody's paying
let's
attention.
go back, could I have a motion, a negative conditional determination on 20 Geddick Road to install the drain pipe? So moved. Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Alex is fishing.
Okay, 6-0-0.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, we forgot to vote it. Okay.
Good catch,
I got
John.
talking and listening. Okay, so we have a continued public hearing for the DPW facility. All right, so why don't you go through your introductions and,
Good evening, I'm Tom Hayes, I'm the town engineer. I'm here with,
Tony Westphizer with Weston and Sampson.
all right, good to see you both.
and, well, we're hoping we answered all the commission's questions, but we're here tonight to field any questions you might have.
Okay. John or Eileen, do you have some comments?
So on September 4th, we received supplemental information number 4, which we sent the link to. It was a really large document. We didn't send out a paper copy because it's this big. We did send a link, and Eileen sent out just the narrative part today. She cut it out and sent it as a PDF, so you didn't have to read through all the stormwater calculations and everything. So I think in this supplemental information packet, they've addressed the questions the final questions that you had given them at the last meeting regarding riverfront area, performance standards and whatnot.
Right. Okay. So let's see if there's any last questions, and then we have a draft decision to review. All right, so, Endra, anything further on this project?
So I was just looking back over the questions from
Yes.
the minutes. So do we have, like, the updated O&M plan with things to do with a dumpster schedule and sweeping and all that kind of stuff that is outlined with a storage for the generator and so forth that was discussed? And
Was that updated? I actually can't remember.
I don't know, so there is an O&M plan here, I'm not sure. It's dated, so it may not have been updated. It's dated June 2019.
It should be updated to address
Those points,
those
the
points.
sweeping and dumpster.
Yeah,
It was August 19th.
And then they were gonna look at where those,
You said June.
Oh,
where those materials were gonna be stored outside in those bins, kind of those outdoor holding areas, that they were gonna look at to see if there's some way to make sure that, like during a big storm event and so forth, that that material wouldn't run off across the lot into the wetlands. So they had talked about possibly either the slope or curbing or something like that.
What,
I know the curbing wouldn't work because of the trucking.
what we spoke about, this is a comment that I believe came up during the first hearing,
Right.
and we did go
Okay, so
back
this
and
could
look
be
at that. And what we spoke about at the August 8th hearing was that we are limited in what we could do as far as curbs and those sorts of things, but what we do plan to do is use as flat grades as we can to stop water from gaining any energy and carrying any kind of fines or particulates away from that area. So we are gonna do what we can with grading.
And then we also had clarified about the trees in terms of that were to be planted.
So
Oh,
there
no,
was
I'm
a
sorry,
revised.
I'm on a different one, sorry. Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay, Bill?
I was not here at the last meeting, but I did watch it on the video, so I am eligible to vote tonight. What happened to the idea of having a platform or something, a bird watching platform? Wasn't that going to be part of this project?
Well, we are committed to creating an area. We didn't want to, we want to file it as a separate notice of intent. And we talked about that, just so not to delay the project, but we're
Okay.
definitely committed to doing either bird watching or a walking path on the remote parking we have across the street from the facility.
Okay, so that'll be a separate submission. All right.
All right, could we go back to that for a second? Because that was one of my questions that I was going to ask. Is there anything currently on the plan that would prevent from the installation of a bird watching platform to stand on or something like that? An area so that that could be done? In other words, you're putting additional parking over there. And is there room to, I mean, you're committing to do this, but if you actually look on the plan, is there room?
Well, there's some green space where we have a subsurface infiltration system. And beyond, we may have to do some engineering so we don't encroach on the wetlands. But, yeah, I think it's definitely doable.
It is doable? Okay,
so.
that was the answer to the question.
You know, we'll work with the commission on
Yeah.
something that works for everyone. That's something that's, that you guys would like to see and something that we could build.
Yeah, I was hoping the answer wouldn't be, sorry, it's not doable anymore.
Well, just to add to Tom's response, I don't think there's anything in the current project that would prevent it.
All right, now there's room, there's enough room to do with a little bit of engineering to do it.
Yeah, I agree with what Tom said.
Okay, all right, that's the answer, good. Okay, Bill, anything else? Okay. John, Ed?
Covered. I'm good.
Okay, I had two questions, one was just answered. The last question is, I was looking at how close the construction is coming to the erosion control lines in the back there, near the thing. Do you feel, are there going to be any, have you looked at it from the point of view of whether there will be temporary impacts during construction where you have to, where the actual construction process has to temporarily disturb the bank or something of that nature in order to construct the back of that building and the back of that site? In other words, do you have to go beyond, in other words, the machines are gonna go back there and they're gonna dig the foundation. And I'm trying to picture this, and I'm picturing the big backhoe going like this. And I'm looking at how close it is. And can they do it from the other side and not have to disassemble the erosion control line, tear into the bank, that's a bad word, I didn't mean that, but disturb the bank, and then it becomes a temporary impact and then it has to be restored. Do you feel that it can be done without doing that?
We do. They can do it from the upland side, especially the trenches in that tight corner that you're referring to. That's something that they can do. You know, the building won't be there at that point. the new building, so they'll be able to do that excavation and then work their way
Back.
away from the wetlands.
All right, so you don't envision having to take down the erosion control, have the stuff go down into the bank and stuff, or anything like that?
No, and this may go without saying, but the order of conditions will be incorporated into the contract documents, and the contractor, it will be a contractual requirement that they comply with the order of conditions.
Okay. Do we need anything to state that if, in the event they have to do that, that they have to come to the commission first? Do we think we need that, or you think we're
I
okay?
think that's implied. You're approving a limit of work. If they can't stay within the limit of work, they would have to come back to the commission.
All right, okay. All right. I mean, I was just thinking about the actual construction with the big machines there, and I was just wondering, so that was the question.
I did have one more question.
Yes, Bill?
And the area, the parking area across the street there we were talking about, in the very back of it, closest to the resource area, there's like a small grassy swale that's going to catch the runoff and drain it down towards the treatment, et cetera. It only seems like it's a 6-inch deep grass. Is that going to be sufficient to capture that on parking lot and hold it to get it to treatment and not just wash across it with time and not just initially, but also over time?
Yes, it is. It's not designed to hold the water, it's just designed to convey it to downstream to the area where Tom talked about, where we do have a subsurface stormwater management
There's enough of
gallery.
a slope to carry significant rainfall?
Yes. And we
It
have.
seemed like it was that deep, with 6 inches.
And it's a good question. We did model that, and that information is actually within the documents that you've received and the stormwater modeling in the stormwater report.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
That's behind there, so that won't be, it's behind the building, so we wouldn't have to worry about mowers
The
going.
other side of the street.
Well,
I'm talking the other side of the street. the
what
conference room.
about if, like, sometimes people on mowers can go a little off route, that if like somebody's mowing that area and it's like mowing over that, is that gonna damage the swale, that it no longer is effective?
I think that depending on the type of mower that they're using, it may be that they need to use trimmers instead of mowers in order to not be grounding out, the mower blades and scalping and so forth. And that will end up being a maintenance issue.
That's something you'll make sure.
And this will end up working with the Stormwater Committee. We're identifying all the BMPs in town that have to be inspected, whether it's on an annual basis or a monthly basis, and this will be added to that list of BMPs that have to be inspected. So if it gets scalped or if it gets dug up, then it's something that we'll have to address.
Is this something that is proposed or is actually going to happen, this
The,
annual inspection of all the BMPs?
well, we're creating a list right now of all the town facilities that have to be inspected on, and Eileen's a little more fluent on the inspection schedule. But
Okay.
that's something that's part of the new stormwater permit.
So that's BMPs on town property, on the town,
Yes.
okay. I like the idea. Not just on town property. There are BMPs and, in the process that they are inspected would be great.
Okay. So I guess, is there anyone in the audience for this? This is the proposed project for the new DPW facility, 13 Great Meadow Road. Okay, then we have a draft decision. We'll go through it. If you have any questions, a lot of this, I'm sure you've seen before. You've been with us before, so you've seen it.
So as I think you just said, we did share this with the applicant team, so everybody's seen this before, so I did get one comment back, and I'll address that. It's in the order of conditions towards the end. So the findings are basically a description of the project. The work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to wetlands. I see. And also riverfront area. The filing history, page 2 is almost entirely a list of all the documents. There's a lot of documents being referenced here. There's a discussion about the wetland values in the area subject to protection. So the work,
Excuse me, just because you're going to be rewriting this into a final format, the very last line on page 2, the word "then" is repeated twice. It's repeated once.
Sorry, where was this?
No closer than,
yep,
it says it twice.
To the end.
Picking you, but you're going to have
I'm
to
sorry.
rewrite it anyways.
yep. So anyway, it would be no closer than 20 feet from the DPW. Proposed work is within riverfront area. There's also bordering land subject to flooding on the lot, but there's no work within there. The work is within critical area, the Zone 2. And the water will also discharge to a waterway which contains endangered species habitat. But there was no comment, basically, from Natural Heritage on that, saying it wasn't a problem. Discussion of the stormwater management standards. Basically, it's a redevelopment project, so it just needs to meet the standards to the maximum extent practicable, so we go through the standards. Basically, they're being met, with the exception of infiltration, which isn't feasible at the site because of contamination issues. Other findings, there's a finding about the planting of trees. Actually, the wording of that needs to be changed a little. The trees are being planted per the approved planting plan. So this was written before that was our original proposal, to put them behind the bulk storage area, but that created a problem with site distance, pulling out of the site because it's on a corner there. So we'll just use the planting plan that they submitted. Then the rest of the findings are standard findings. And the bylaw conditions are also standard. There's no bylaw condition for a surety, as it's a town project. But all the other conditions are fairly standard bylaw conditions as well. Order of conditions, under the Wetlands Protection Act, once again, the first page is virtually all document references. Page 2, standard conditions, for administrative conditions, and then the pre-construction conditions. On pages 2 and 3 are standard conditions once again. Page 3, erosion control conditions are standard. We are requiring hay bales and silt fence. This isn't the type of project where we would approve something less than that. Other than that, the conditions are standard. There's a standard condition about dewatering, which may or may not be an issue here. But presumably, if there is dewatering, the PE, or the LSP would be involved in that. Pollution control conditions, once again, nothing out of the or unusual there at all. Inspection conditions, so this is a town project, but we're still having a requirement for weekly inspection reports to be submitted, so that can be done by somebody from town staff, or I don't know if you're contracting with Weston and Sampson to do that, but we do need weekly inspection reports. But somebody from the town engineering department would be fine for that. Drainage and stormwater conditions, so standard condition requiring the installation of all the structures be documented and certified by a PE. Condition 49 is regarding the O&M plan. I'm not sure if it was updated. If it wasn't updated, we would just need an updated version of that. Condition 50 is a prohibition on washing vehicles outside. Shouldn't be necessary. The new facility at 10 Great Meadow will have a washing facility. 51 is a prohibition on planting invasive species. 52 is the planting condition, so that one will actually be changed to say native trees and shrubs shall be planted per the approved landscaping plan to provide riverfront area improvements. Additionally, meadow mix shall be used on all areas shown on the plans to be planted with grass.
Can we add something to that, that would state that, that the trees and shrubs need to be replaced, should any damage, if they die or any damage, with heavy equipment, things get knocked over sometimes, that there'd be a condition that those trees will be replaced and shrubs if they were damaged or they died.
Okay. The planted trees or existing, because there's not many existing ones? You mean
Well,
these?
Yeah, the ones that are being planted, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's basically it, standard conditions about achieving a certificate of compliance.
All right. Were there any questions at all? You saw it ahead of time anyway. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yes. All right, and any further questions or changes from the commission?
Before you vote, I also want to mention, I have also watched the video for the last meeting, August 8th.
Okay. All right. So, we have some waivers to do.
It's up to you. So there, if you determine that the existing, the existing facility doesn't meet your definition of a structure, yes, you do.
All right.
So those, that shed type thing in the back is as close as the existing building would be.
I think it's like a concept.
All right, well.
Yeah, well,
I don't know what anyone else's position is, but to me, it doesn't meet the definition.
It had a canvas.
Had a canvas top,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's like a temporary.
All right, and so if we're going to do a waiver, we need to state that the property is being improved from a natural resource value by the drainage and all that, okay, which is what justifies a waiver. All right, so could I have a motion to indicate that we're granting, this is a waiver of the 50-foot?
I think there was also a waiver of the 20-foot just for a temporary, wasn't there a temporary disturbance of the 20-foot as part of the construction process?
well, there's a stormwater outfall within the 20-foot, or actually two stormwater outfalls within the 20-foot.
But that's allowed. That's actually allowed if there's no choice
Right.
because of elevations. So what, we are waiving what again? The 50?
The 50-foot no build.
Right, okay. All right, so for DEP file number 122-631, I'd entertain a motion to issue a waiver of
629.
629?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's a different one.
No, there are three, 629, 630, and 631.
okay, 629.
Yep.
Okay, 629, a waiver of our bylaw provision for a 50-foot no disturb line. The applicant, because the applicant has shown that the stormwater controls are greatly improved on the site and will provide a benefit to the riverfront and wetlands area.
And based on their alternatives analysis, that this seemed to be the best alternative, so I would move such that we
Grant the waiver.
grant the waiver.
All right, is there a second?
Second?
All right, any discussion on this? All in favor? 600. Okay. All right, next, could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-629?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Could I have a motion to issue the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-629? Second?
Second?
All in favor? And finally, could I have a motion to issue the permit as a notice of intent conditions under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act for DEP file number 122-629?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Same vote?
Thank you very much.
You're entirely welcome. One facility down, one to go. Okay. All right.
That was a difficult site, so, thanks for all your efforts in helping us achieve the best, I think, arrangement.
All right. Next is a continued public hearing, item number 7. It's a notice of intent that was continued for 10 Great Meadow Road. The applicant is again the town of Burlington, DPW, and they're going to demolish the existing structure and construct a new parks and recreation and DPW maintenance facility. This one is DEP file number 122-630. All right, so, again, you want to state your name for the record?
Tom Hayes, I'm the town engineer.
Tony Westpfizer with Weston and Sampson.
All right. All right, so, You folks want to say anything on this one, or, no, that's,
Site's a little bit cleaner than the last one.
could say that. Okay, John, comments?
So the only changes that were made to this site since the original filing was that they reconstructed the stormwater basin and pulled it further away from the wetlands. And that may have been done prior to the last meeting, so there were really no other issues, I believe.
Did you provide supplementary? Mostly about the drawings.
Right.
Are we all set?
Yeah.
Okay, are any leftover issues from your perspective?
No.
All right. All right, so are there any leftover issues? Indra?
No.
Gail? Bill?
No.
John?
No.
Ed? All right. I had just one question, actually.
I'll give him this one.
Oh, here. In the back of the facility, you are constructing, it says, in the very back of the facility, I don't know what it's called. It's this area here,
I think it's the connect to the sewage line.
the connection to the sewage line. Okay, and I was just wondering, how much disturbance is there going to be on that slope in order to do that?
We'll need to dig there's an existing sewer in an easement running parallel to that property line. We're gonna need to tie into that sewer,
Right.
so we'll need
It's
to,
a 24-inch clay pipe, right?
that rings a bell. I don't
Yeah.
recall offhand.
Large diameter pipe.
Okay, so, in other words, can you set up when you're doing that, can you maintain an erosion control line around that excavation and maintain it?
Yes, the plan should show that.
This shows that.
Well, they're showing that, but I'm wondering if it can really be done. Because it's, can you actually do it on a slope like that?
Well, it flattens out at the bottom of the slope,
Right, it does, yeah, yeah.
and so it'll go all the way around.
Okay, so the intent is to maintain that erosion control line and not take it down, do it. I'm concerned about a lot of erosion getting past that slope.
Yeah, that's
Just-
correct.
just
The
see what I'm-
intent would be to fully encircle the construction with erosion controls.
And prevent erosion.
That's correct.
All right, so
And the plan.
the plan is
should-
not, it's not to dismantle the erosion controls, do the, and then reinstall it.
The connection to the sewer pipe is actually within the erosion controls that you're seeing. So there shouldn't be,
Yeah, it's at the bottom, right.
well, it should be several feet inside of the outer boundary of that.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it is, it's inside.
So there shouldn't be a reason to dismantle the erosion control to do what we're looking to do.
All right, well,
The- That all said, the message is clear that we need to have erosion control at all times during,
Right.
during construction, anytime that the ground is disturbed or that we are disturbing the ground. We would not only intend, we will
Yeah.
require the contractor to maintain erosion control.
Yeah. So do we need, John, a condition that says in the event the contractor finds they have to dismantle the erosion control in that area to do the construction, that the office is contacted at all? Or is it, again, the same answer as last time,
It is the same answer, and additionally, where that connection is, it's not even in the buffer zone to wetlands. There's no wetlands over there on that side.
Well, that's true.
There may be floodplain out there at some point, but the wetlands are pretty far away.
But we still need to control the erosion.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we need anything further there, or they're representing if they have to go beyond the limits of the erosion control boundary, they have to contact the office? Is that
Right.
clear in the decision?
I mean, I think it's fairly well implied. I mean, they install erosion controls, we come out and inspect them, and they're supposed to stay there until we authorize them to be removed, so.
Well, I mean, I'm putting it to you on that one. It's just
Right.
whether something's needed.
Yep.
I'm not saying I know something more is needed.
To the extent this helps, I agree with John that it's implied. We have a very clear understanding that erosion control is required and needs to be maintained consistently and continuously throughout the project, and that it would be, that it wouldn't be allowed to dismantle the erosion control that was required. I think it's implied just by the requirement to have it.
Right.
That would be our view of that, and if the contractor came to us looking to dismantle, you know, we'd look at that very closely and determine whether or not that really needed to be done, and if it really did come up that it needed to be done, I know we'd be back in talking to you folks.
Or you'd probably end up proposing the erosion control line be temporarily moved and reset up and then brought back, something like that, if it had to be done.
And depending on how that would be realigned, we would at a minimum touch base with the staff and the department.
Right. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that, but I thought it was a question worth asking.
Plus, there are weekly inspections and inspection reports, which include checking erosion controls.
Right. That's fine, okay. If there are any other questions from anyone? Is there anyone in the audience for this? Then we'll just do the same thing as last time, review the decision and a vote. Is any waivers required on this one?
No.
No, okay.
Okay, this one should even be faster and easier. The conditions are fairly similar, if a little maybe easier, because it's strictly a buffer zone project. No resource, there's no work in any resource areas. So the findings are all fairly similar. The stormwater management conditions, once again, redevelopment project. This one is different in that it actually meets the infiltration standard, unlike the other one. They were allowed to infiltrate here. It's basically it for the findings. The rest are all just standard findings. And the conditions are, I believe, the same conditions as for the previous order, the bylaw conditions, not the order.
Right.
The order of conditions, administrative conditions, identical. Well, the plan references are obviously different, but all the other conditions are the same. Pre-construction conditions, once again, are the same. Erosion control are also, so once again, we're requiring hay bales and silt fence here. Sediment barriers shall be maintained in good condition at all times until the issue of a certificate of compliance or the commission's found that the site is permanently stabilized. All the other erosion control conditions are standard and the same as the previous order, as are the pollution control conditions. Once again, we're requiring weekly inspection reports by a PE, a wetland scientist, or another approved person. Stormwater conditions are the same. We'll require certification by a PE that all the structures were installed correctly. We've got the O&M plan. Washing of vehicles outside is prohibited. There's the prohibition on planting the invasive species under the miscellaneous conditions, and then there's the conditions for filing for the certificate of compliance.
Any questions on the left? Any questions on the right? Mr. Hayes, are you going to be the one that would do the weekly inspection reports, or were you going to have the engineer do it?
I'll probably have the engineers do it.
Engineer? Okay, that's fine. All right. All right, if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-630? Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Could I have a motion to adopt the findings under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, for 122-630?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote. Could I have a motion to adopt the conditions in the notice of intent for DEP file number 122-630 under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
You guys.
The whole, you know, it should be said that the project team, there were a lot of issues brought up, and the project team, engineering, and you folks as the engineer, put in a lot of effort to answer. We had a lot of questions, and you folks on both projects did an admirable job responding, so we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is, we're looking at constructing sidewalks for the town of Burlington. It's between the old Sears Building and Middlesex Turnpike. It's a continued public hearing. It's item number 8 on the agenda, and it's DEP file number 122-631. Good evening to you both.
Hello, Jocelyn Mayer from VHB. Kristen Kasner, Planning Director but representing the town
Absolutely,
on
and
this project.
you probably expected to be here another hour where the two big projects
You guys
before
are
you.
doing a fantastic job of moving quickly.
Yeah, I'm a little
Really
surprised
appreciate
myself, actually. Okay. All right, so let's keep moving then. The wetlands line was flagged, the bottom of the fill area was flagged, and we were able to go out on a site walk. John, do you have comments at all on this one?
So, right, so the limit of the riprap was flagged yesterday, and the commission got out to see it. The riprap, the distance of the riprap to the resource area, and the resource area varies. In some places, it's the bordering vegetated wetland, some places it's the bank of the stream. But the distance from the work, the limit of work, the riprap, to the resource area varies at various stake locations. It's as close as 3 to 5 feet in some places, and then at other places, it's more like 15 or 20. It's, you know, it's obviously, it's not the resource area isn't a straight line. It, you know, it waves, it's a wavy line. So I think the bottom line is there are places where the commission would be able to have trees planted to try to mitigate the loss of some of the trees that will need to come down on the slope where that will be rip-wrapped. If you require the planting of shade trees like red maple trees, which will, you know, grow into good-sized trees, that'll definitely help mitigate the loss of some of the trees which can't be saved. There were certainly trees out there that were at the lower end of the riprap that the contractor seemed like he could save riprap around, which would be good because some of those were oaks and they were sizable.
Right. Okay, so I guess to the consultant, when we were out at the, just before we go to discussion with the commission, the construction people seemed to say that we can carefully be careful how much fill is placed around some of the bigger worthwhile trees there. I don't know if they discussed this with you at all, but.
Not in detail, no.
Okay, but they said there's 3 or 4 major oaks and a few other trees. A lot of stuff not worth saving, but there were 3 or 4 other trees that were
Okay.
out there, and they were certainly worth saving. So there might be at least those 4 and maybe another X amount of trees. And they said that the riprap, that a lot of it was that the fill could be tapered down so you don't smother the trunk of the tree, and it was already already down the end there anyway. And they thought the riprap could be, they basically told me that the riprap could be carefully placed and wouldn't be rolling down into the resource area anyway. And they also said that the riprap would be of such a nature that water would go in between, and that they could place it around the trees, and they thought they could potentially save some, particularly those 4 oak trees and a few others. And they felt confident that that could be done. Would you agree with that?
I have to look at exactly where they are. I would have to say if they're towards the bottom of the slope, we can probably work that out to make that happen.
Okay.
And we would also recommend a discussion about this item, that in the investigation, prior to construction, that those trees that we would like to try to save be marked, so when we can take a look at in the field, to make sure that, certainly they don't come down, but that they're marked, so we know that they're under investigation to see if we can save them, and when the riprap goes in, that they, that they can carefully construct around
Yeah,
it where possible.
they seem to think, obviously, one's right up near the sidewalk, that's dicey, obviously.
Yeah.
But things that are down lower where you're down like at 5 inches of fill and stuff like that, and it's already tapering down,
Yeah.
they thought it was very possible. It was also fair to note that there's no guarantee, of course, that the trees, will survive.
Yeah.
But, so, with that, does the commission on the left have any questions or comments? Indra?
No, only thing, the same thing, it would be great if you could save those trees,
Understand.
Gail?
Nothing further.
Bill?
I still would prefer to see it on the other side of the street, but I realize cost is a factor. I was glad that I walked the site because I didn't realize how much space was down there. There is room to plant trees, and this slope is not, 50% of the whole area that's important. So I feel better having walked the site, to think that it can be done and still preserve that resource.
John?
No questions.
Ed?
In relation to trees, there's one clump of white birch that everybody was kind of concerned. They would say, well, there's one tree amongst that's bad. And he agreed, you'll save the others, that one probably would be taken out.
Right.
I'll take a look at those as well.
Nice decorative thing, those white birch.
To add as well, I had a discussion with John Keeley about, what the amount of trees might be. Probably, in terms of the space that's available, it probably is less than 20, but asked Simon to commit to at least 20 red maples for plantings in that area. Hopefully, we can get all 20 in there.
Right, so you're committing to up to 20 trees, in other words?
Committing to, at least 20 if they're possible to go in. If it's less, then less, but if
I mean,
20
to-
can get in there, 20 red maples.
Yeah. Do you have any comments on that, John?
No, I think it's a good number.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, the oaks are saved, the 4 big, large oaks providing shade, and others, there may be justification that there's not places to put more trees in certain areas,
Yeah.
in which case it's,
Well, there's lots of, especially down the other end, there's a lot of open areas. so-
yeah, and towards Middlesex Turnpike, there's some open areas that, the stream is actually further away, but it would, there's plenty of room to plant there, since the stuff that's there is not any too great. Right. Okay.
John, just glanced ahead the conditions, but is there a reason to, especially if, someone else is going to be purchasing the trees and so forth, or like maybe you are, I don't know, but should we specify a minimum diameter on these?
Yeah, 3-inch DBH, actually, I've got that written in, so, yeah.
2.5 or 3?
2.5? Yeah, probably 2.5 is enough. They're not going to be watered, so
Right.
we don't want
Right,
them
it
too
should be. No,
large,
I get it,
because if
yeah.
they plant them at the wrong time of year,
Just didn't want to
survive.
get like what we used to pass out at, conservation, voting.
Right.
Although mine,
What did we pass
The
out?
ones that Kerry used to pot up.
You mean the half-inch things?
Yeah, but the ones I planted though now are like probably 30 feet tall and just doing great.
What were they?
I've got magnolia and a beautiful red bud.
My magnolia is 25 feet high that I planted from Kerry.
Yeah. Okay.
It's great. Okay, sorry.
That was 40,
I got
that was 40
distracted.
years ago, Larry.
No, it wasn't. I haven't lived here that long.
So
Haven't
it's
even
40 years
been able
ago.
to, when I was able to afford a house 40 years ago. You kidding? Sheesh.
Anyways, it's a beautiful tree. Okay. So, is there anyone in the audience for this? This is the sidewalk project along Mall Road. No, any comments from anyone? Okay, so I guess we have a draft decision to review.
Right.
Okay.
Which I forgot to send to Jocelyn, but I did send to Kristen, so
Be a nice program.
Kristen's seen it.
Must be a nice program.
Okay, so the project description, basically, no, the sidewalk in the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW, to wetlands and bank, and also within the riverfront area of a locally regulated stream, which is a tributary to Vine Brook. Filing history, the plan references, wetland values, so the resource areas, that's also within a critical area, which is the Zone 2. The limit of work for the riprap slope would be within about 5 feet of the bank and the wetlands at some points. Stormwater management, this is kind of tricky, so it really isn't exempt from the stormwater management standards, but realistically, sidewalks, I haven't seen a sidewalk project that actually can meet the stormwater standards unless they put in permeable concrete. So just sort of, basically, they don't meet the standards, and you just have to live with it. Other findings, the riprap slope stabilization and the retaining wall, I'm not really sure why it says that. The riprap stabilization will be within the 20-foot no disturb, so you would need to vote to waive the no disturb. And they've agreed to try to mitigate those impacts by planting the red maples. That's it for the findings.
Could we put in something, would it be a problem to put in that the applicant has agreed to mark trees in the field to be saved?
Okay.
In-
Will the applicant be doing that, or will the staff be doing that?
In consultation with staff.
Yeah, can we add like an if possible, just in case I get out there and have a reason why
Yep.
I can't be, but
Right.
I doubt that I would, but.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we understand. Okay.
Okay, and then on to the order of conditions. The administrative conditions are standard. Page 2, pre-construction conditions are once again standard. Well, they're not completely standard, so there's no requirement to record this because it's within a roadway, so there's no actually parcel or deed to record the order to, so this is one of those ones where there's no recording of the order. Erosion control conditions are standard. There's a requirement for a sequencing plan.
Do we want to use 33 as the condition that requires the meeting in the field to also mark trees that are going to be attempted to be saved?
Okay.
Could we add that phrase?
Okay. Pollution control conditions are standard. Once again, there's a requirement for inspection reports. This is obviously the kind of project that's really only going to probably take 3 or 4 weeks.
It's likely.
Then, on the final page, there's the riverfront restoration conditions requiring a planting plan, so that can just be a sketch of where the trees are going. There's a requirement for a minimum of 20 red maples, which I've added, trees shall be at least 2.5 inches DBH, which is the diameter of the tree at breast height, so that's just the diameter of the trunk of the tree, about 5 feet off the ground, well, 4 feet off the ground. Condition 51 is a prohibition on planting invasive species. Then we'll add a condition to reinforce the finding that Larry just mentioned. So the condition 52 will be a condition about any trees on the slope, particularly the large oaks, shall be saved if possible. Something to that effect.
Right.
Then the certificate of compliance conditions will have a condition requiring that 2 growing seasons pass before the certificate of compliance is issued, with at least 80% survival of the planted red maples. And this isn't a case where there's an occupancy permit that'll be being held up, the order isn't being recorded, so it shouldn't be an onerous condition on anybody to wait 2 growing seasons to close this out.
Okay. Any further comments to the order of conditions? Or the findings? How about on the right, any further comments?
No, hallelujah, we're there.
All right. Does this require a waiver? They're doing work within
No disturb.
a no disturb, and for this, what do we say that's 20-foot no disturb line?
No disturb, right.
Okay. All right. So, let's do the waiver first. Could I have a motion to grant a waiver of our bylaw and regulations under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for doing work within the 20-foot no disturb zone because the project is in the public safety interest, and the applicant is doing what they can to mitigate with revegetation, something like that. Does that sound right?
Yes. I will move such.
All right. That must have sounded good.
It sounded great.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion? All in favor? 600, waivers granted. All right, could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-631?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, 600. Could I have a motion to issue the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-631?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote. And lastly, could I have a motion to issue the order of conditions for the sidewalk project, DEP file number 122-631, under both Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote?
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Long-awaited
Entirely
sidewalk
welcome.
connection.
All right, this sidewalk has been long overdue.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy
All
your
right.
evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kristen. Take care, folks. Okay. Next. Okay, we're on item number 9. Okay. 9, notice is given, the town of Burlington will hold a public hearing during which time you will take all information related to a notice of intent filed by 175 Bedford Street LLC / Kenneth John for the proposed site improvements. They will be installing best management practices for stormwater at the location, 175 Bedford Street. The proposed work would be within riverfront area, bordering land subject to flooding, the 100-foot buffer zone to bank and bordering vegetative wetlands pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The commission will be reviewing the information and may issue an order of conditions. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review. Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
All right, so why don't you introduce yourselves, who you're associated with, and then you can give a summary of your project if you'd like.
Okay. Kenneth Strong, 175 Bedford Street, LLC.
I'm Chris Jung, his son, is co-kind of manager of 175 Bedford Street LLC, but we're also co-owners of Mac Designer Hardware, which will be a tenant inside the building when the project is complete.
All right, sounds good. Yes.
My name is Bree Sullivan. I'm with Bayside Engineering, and I am the civil engineer on the project. I prepared the plans and the submittals.
All right, good to see you all. All right, so would you like to summarize as much as you would like to say about the project?
Sure. So the site, I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's 175 Bedford Street. The site has been vacant for many years. It's in a bit of not great condition. So basically, just get my version of the plan here. So basically, the site, the lot is 37,000 square feet, give or take a few square feet. The vast majority of the lot is paved, with the exception of this area here, which is actually the Vine Brook. The property actually goes either to somewhere in the Vine Brook. It may actually go to the other bank. I don't know exactly how far. There is approximately a 12,000 square foot structure on the site. It's a two-story structure. It's about 6,000 square feet per floor. The pavement completely encircles the building and goes to within anywhere between 5 and 10 feet of the mean annual high water line of the Vine Brook. The pavement is in poor to broken condition. It's reached the end of its service life and needs to be replaced. So the existing structure has a few small stairways that come out on this side. It's got a solid fill concrete loading dock in the back that's in a sad state of disrepair. And there's a small concrete landing in the front up here. The entire site is below the 100-year flood zone. A portion of the site in the rear here is within the floodway of the Vine Brook. What's not immediately clear here is that this property so the property adjacent to it over here to the west is on the corner of Middlesex Turnpike and Bedford Road. So it's pretty close to this culvert, this crossing on Middlesex Turnpike. So basically, the site as you see it today is not going to change much with respect to the building. They're not proposing to add anything to the building. They do want to move the loading dock to a more accessible area here to allow the trucks to access the loading dock much easier than where it is in its current location. I think what they probably did before is they had the trucks come down this side. That's not the plan for this site, for the proposed conditions. Basically, the proposal is to remove the pavement from this point here, all the way down this side of the building, and all from the rear of the building. That area is going to become unpaved or pervious. It's about 3,700 square feet of pavement that we're removing from the site. And it roughly equates to, with that and some small areas over here, roughly equates to, we bring the site from 65% impervious to 55% impervious. So it's a decent reduction. We're proposing to take the roof runoff in its entirety and direct it to the downspouts into what this is going to become it's a pretty shallow drainage. It's not quite a swale, it's a grass channel by the DEP definition. It's a grass channel that will convey that rooftop runoff to this very small infiltration basin here. There is an outlet structure, which essentially is like a check dam. There's actually there's a small impoundment, and then the check dam, rather the overflow structure, will allow the water to drain into the Vine Brook slowly. Right now, the current conditions, the roof runs off to this side of the building. It all flows across and runs off to this side of the building, then across the pavement and into the Vine Brook, carrying with it all of the pollutants from the existing parking lot, as well as some of the asphalt that's broken up. This property here is the mobile station. The mobile station, as many gas stations are, has been thoroughly investigated for contaminant release. It has a Bureau of Waste Site cleanup record. And as a result, 175 Bedford Street has a Bureau of Waste Site cleanup record as well for constituents that are consistent with gasoline, MBTE, benzene, stuff like that. There is a report on file with the Bureau of Waste Site cleanup that basically characterizes this and talks about the down gradient status of this
So it
property.
has down gradient property status?
For the down gradient property.
Okay.
And this is in fact down gradient. They have they show the direction of the groundwater is to the Vine Brook, which is what we would expect. There are monitoring wells on this site that are cited in the report. All but one of the monitoring wells had reportable concentrations. This was in 2000. Reportable concentrations above the reporting limit, and they subsequently had to file a 120-day release form for that, and all those records are available at the Bureau of Waste Site cleanup. The well back here, where our infiltration basin is, did not have contaminants in it. Now, that was in 2000. So, it could be that the foundation of the building here has blocked because the groundwater flows this way, sort of diagonally this way. So it stands to reason that this area here is blocked by the foundation of the building. So, so for the most part, the site in its entirety is a redevelopment. I probably should have got the housekeeping out of the way first. So I have these 3 cards. And I also have a letter from Division of Fish and Wildlife that says that the proposed plan will not result in a take of habitat. So a portion of this site adjacent to the Vine Brook is habitat. It's protected habitat. And this is the no-take letter. I assume you have a copy of that? If not, I can give you this copy. Okay. So we submitted a stormwater report, and with that, we also submitted the supporting documentation for the notice of intent. Did you get the DEP number as well?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So basically, we have several resource areas that we're dealing with here. Boarding land subject to flooding, wetland buffer zone, and riverfront area. And we have a bit of activity in all those areas. We're not affecting the bank. We're not affecting any of the bordering vegetated wetlands. We are obviously in the buffer zone. We're in the riverfront area. We are working within the 20-foot offset, the no disturb zone in the town of Burlington's bylaw. All the areas that we propose work are currently pre-developed.
Right.
We're not proposing any tree removal along the bank. There's a bit of overhanging trees over here, but because we're pulling the pavement back, I don't think there's gonna have to be a whole lot done there. It would only be minor pruning to address the overhang, but I think, when we come down here, the trees don't really overhang the pavement at all.
Right.
So, one other thing that we're doing, the pavement to remain is going to be removed and replaced. So we're not proposing any regrading of the parking area because we're in the boarding land subject to flooding, and that would affect that. On the edge of the pavement here, we're proposing a pea stone diaphragm, which is typically used ahead of the vegetated strips when you're going into a BMP of some sort. We're really in a tough situation here, based on the proposed use here, the parking, and this is an issue for planning. We're going before the planning board in October. We're already deficient several spaces for the proposed use. And so the spacing layout that we have here is really critical to the owners, to the clients and the tenants. So we tried to get as many spaces as we could using the guidelines that you're supposed to use so people can actually maneuver through the site. And we're deficient. So we're really hard pressed to reduce it any more than we have.
All right. Very good. That was a good summary, thank you. All right, so, John, do you have comments relative to resource areas, jurisdictional areas, please?
Sure. Sure, so as discussed, it's, the whole site is in the riverfront area. The whole site is in bordering land subject to flooding. Much of the site's within 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of Vine Brook. The Natural Habitat and Endangered Species Program species is the same one at the DPW, which is the bridal shiner, which lives in this section of Vine Brook. So that's basically it for resource areas. I do have a question about the project. So the NOI says that you're repaving, and you said, you just alluded to it. And it's kind of critical for us to know what that means. Right? If you're doing full depth reconstruction, what you're doing, because the level of stormwater improvement that the commission would require would really depend upon what you're doing to the parking lot.
Yeah, so the parking lot, we were planning to just remove all the existing pavement because it's already all broken up and breaking and cracking everywhere. So we're actually gonna just basically scrape that whole layer of pavement off and repave. I don't think we're doing any digging below that or anything other than that.
Okay, so you're removing all the pavement?
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, typically on a project like that, the commission does require some sort of stormwater improvements beyond something like this. So I'll just back up though. I mean, the rooftop runoff mitigation, I think, is great. The building is a significant portion of the parcel. I'm not sure what percent, but it's a big part of the parcel. Currently, that water sheet flows across pavement, so that's all being taken away, put into this grassed conveyance. I'm not sure if it'll actually infiltrate. Obviously, the groundwater there will be pretty close to the surface, but at least it'll be flowing through vegetation. It's clean to begin with, so big improvement. I'm not convinced that the stormwater management for the parking lot is sufficient if they're actually removing the entire parking lot and basically starting from scratch. That said, it is redevelopment. I'm not sure, catch basin, storm scepter, I'm not really sure, but my preference would be neither of those, but to have like LID, a strip of LID, but clearly there isn't really enough room because they would lose that whole row of parking spaces, which unfortunately doesn't seem like they can afford. That would be ideal if there was a strip of like a linear rain garden that it could flow through on its way to Vine Brook, but I don't know, it's up to you. So it is redevelopment. You can really require as much as you basically think is feasible.
This is also the Aquifer Protection District, which has the 44% pretreatment. So that would be really tough for us to get. It would be tough for us to get to meet the standards without the 44% at this site because of the horizontal constraints, I think.
Well, the 44% is for infiltration, so you have to pre-treat for infiltration.
Right.
I don't think infiltration is probably feasible here.
It's probably
because of
not
the-
feasible, yeah.
Between the water table
Yeah.
and the downgraded property status,
Yep.
I don't think the commission could
That's
require
true.
that, yeah.
Right. Okay, let's see if any ideas bubble to the surface, so to speak, and let's discuss it. If there are issues that need a response, we'll make note of them, and
Okay.
you'll have a list. You don't, I mean, you don't have to have an answer for every question.
Okay.
If there are questions.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, Indra, anything?
Yeah, you said that you're reducing the impervious area, right?
Yes.
Where you're reducing it? Are you reducing the number of parking?
No. So currently, the pavement is all the way around the building. And we're proposing to come about a third of the way down here, take the pavement out from here all the way to the Vine Brook. And then all behind the building here, we're proposing to take out the pavement there as well.
So you are reducing about 15%? That's what you said?
Yeah, 3,700 out of, I think it was 24,000,
I see.
yeah, 24,000 square feet of impervious, so not a whole lot.
Okay. So how the water is going from the parking area? How,
So the parking area is sloped from here, it sort of sheets this way, sort of diagonally
it's sheet
towards-
flowing?
So perpendicular to Vine Brook.
oh,
It flows from here down to here. And it's very, very low slope.
so you're not doing any treatment?
No, other than the pea stone trench, which will remove coarse sediment before it goes across the bank, we are not.
The main source of a lot of that water, I believe, is off of the roof of the building as well, that just comes right off onto that side of that parking lot. So we are actually taking that 6,000 some odd square feet of roof and draining it properly through the new place where we're doing that grasswood culvert.
The grass channel here.
Right, so that ends up being about 6,300 square feet or so of all that stormwater that's already going across that parking lot, which will be properly managed and drained.
Okay. Indra, anything else?
No.
Okay. Gail?
So I think, because this is riverfront, it would be nice, and you're removing all the pavement, that you should look at some type of treatment of the water before it gets into Vine Brook, which is an important resource area. So this is riverfront, is there an alternatives? I didn't see one in the, there's not many alternatives, but doesn't there have to be a submission of?
Well, I mean,
Was it-
basically, the project is improvements in the riverfront. Other than the changing of the loading dock, everything they're doing is basically an
Improvement,
improvement.
okay.
I mean, the building is the building, so.
It also, so you're gonna have the stone trench along the back that you're proposing. Is there, are you gonna have any fencing or anything between the cars and the trench? Where the cars are parking along the parking lot? So
No,
that,
we weren't proposing any.
so that might be nice to, something to protect that, because if cars back up into it, that stone might get disturbed, might end up rolling into the stream, into the river. Do you have any plan for when you maintain this, how you're gonna maintain this lot, like sweeping, snow placement, when you're gonna plow it, where's the snow gonna go, that kind of thing?
We don't have it on this plan. The planning board plan is gonna have to show that.
Okay, 'cause we'd like to see that also because of the resource area. Presently, I didn't like seeing the dumpster right on top of the river. There's concrete waste that's actually washing out from that dumpster because they're throwing.
You mean the construction dumpster?
Yeah. But you can see the wash going right to the bank of the river, up from underneath the dumpster. That's not a good place for that to be.
So are you suggesting a different place for the dumpster?
Yeah, or at very
That's
least.
the construction dumpster.
It's a
not-
construction dumpster. It's not, the dumpster that they're gonna place up here, I think that's fine. I
Okay,
mean,
all
that's
right,
further away. I'm
Okay.
talking about what they have in place right now.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure which one you were talking
It just would be nice to see some better improvements to the parking lot, just to, I mean, I don't know if, would his parking lot be improved with some curbing?
Well, if you put in curbing, then you'd have to put either curb breaks or a catch
Right,
basin,
to allow for
otherwise
the-
it's just holding the water in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right, let me go on this side first and come back to you, Bill.
Fine.
Okay? Ed, any comments on this one?
Just the area where you're dealing with the pea stone as a top layer and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Will the filtration be good enough if that starts creating soot, leaves, things like that? It seems like it's not enough to capture that water.
So, I mean, typically the pea stone trench is only used for coarse sediment, to catch it before it continues on its way to the Vine Brook. There technically isn't a TSS removal rate for that structure. It's a pretreatment device for the edge of parking lots before they go into a vegetated strip or vegetated filter of some sort, 25, 50 feet, and then down into a biofiltration area. It was the best solution that I could get, given the distance to the bank.
I was just looking at maybe the pea stone might be too small.
Yeah, I mean, that's a consideration. Yeah, I mean, some of the real coarse stuff might wash off, but I think the heavier stuff would settle out for sure.
And you don't have a lot of vegetation this side of Vine Brook. So it's like a lot of trees are coming down through the parking lot with leaves falling off and things of that sort. But it was just something that caught my eye.
Sure.
What if that started getting soot and dirt and things like that? It's gonna just plug it all up.
All right, so I got it I added it to the list, Ed, actually, for them to look at.
And actually, the reason why we do that is so you don't have to rehabilitate the trench. You can pull that layer off, take the geotextile out, either hose it off or replace the geotextile, and then put the pea stone back in, and it helps to preserve the trench, so you don't have to rehabilitate the whole
There's a
trench.
maintenance factor there.
What other solutions did you look at, and how did you come to this particular one?
So, I was trying to be really sensitive to not losing any parking spaces. We did lose parking spaces because I had to follow the standards for lane width and space width and length. We probably could have fit more in if we had squeezed the lane down, but I mean, because we knew we were going to be constricted on parking, that really kind of guided where we could and we couldn't remove the pavement. I mean, ideally, I think the vegetated mini bioretention would be great, but we would lose a ton of parking. So I was left with being 5 to 10 feet from the bank resource area and with a sharp drop-off. I was left with very, very little alternative with the way the grading is on the site. I mean, under normal circumstances, we could, we have a relatively high water table here, as you would expect, being that close to the brook. The brook moves pretty slowly through there at mean annual high water. You can barely see it moving. You can't put a subsurface system in here. I thought maybe a tree filter box, but even that is probably too deep to be setting where you're going to have to catch the runoff down by the stream. So there's not a whole lot of options.
All right, Bill?
What is in the infiltration basin? Is that gonna be also plant material or just stone?
So the owner would like to have it stone for maintenance reasons. At least just the basin area would be stone there, the bottom would be stone.
I understand the rooftop runoff is considered clean, so
Right.
that's just
There
not
isn't
as
much
critical.
filtration that's
But
necessary.
I'm thinking, would it be possible to direct some of this parking lot runoff over to there as well?
Well, I did
And then
think of
maybe
that.
have it as a planted.
I did think of that, and we probably have the grades to do that, but then we run up against this pretreatment, this 44% pretreatment. in order for us to get that in there and meet the standards in the Aquifer Protection District, we have to pre-treat that 44% before it gets into the infiltration BMP. And that's hard to get to, even with a sediment forebay, we're talking about 25% removal efficiency. Now we're talking about building structures out further, so, I
But it
mean,
would still be better than what is currently proposed. So
it
does-
would
does
be
that
better
mean-
treatment, it would be better treatment.
Does that mean it wouldn't be allowed, John, because it, or Eileen, because it doesn't meet the standard, even though it would be an improvement of what they're currently proposing?
It's the gray area.
Catch 22 then?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gray area. One, I'm not really sure how much infiltration is really going to occur in this basin.
Yeah.
Because it's probably, a lot of it is going to be at the water table.
Okay.
I think we actually have a little more space because there's a monitoring well there, and I was looking at the static water levels from the measurements, and it's a 1.5 to 2 feet below proposed.
And they can't change the grade of the parking lot to pitch it over there because it's a floodplain, so I don't know how much of it they could get there, but they're not allowed to raise it and pitch it.
We could only go
because-
down.
Right, you can only lower it, you can't raise it. But, you know, yeah, you're supposed to get 44% TSS removal prior to an infiltration BMP. But if you discharge directly to the brook.
Right, you don't have 44, right,
You get
It's,
zero.
right.
I mean, I guess the theory is you don't want to contaminate groundwater, surface water, whatever.
We might be able to direct some of that part of the parking lot into that and let the rest of it kind of fall out down the other end, but, which would be better than nothing.
Right, and, well, if that were the case, then I would recommend that the basin be vegetated and not stone.
Okay. Which, that makes sense, because we need the pollutant removal, yeah.
Right.
And I would put a forebay in there as well, a small forebay to capture the
I like that.
sediment.
That's good.
Yeah, get some of it, yeah.
I'm gonna follow up on this. Would an infiltration swale work to convey some of the water to the basin that you're constructing?
I think the problem with that would be the grades. Would be, once you get it into the swale, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else, I'm thinking of a trench. I think it would be hard to fit there, to grade it out properly without losing parking spaces.
Did you look at that?
I will.
The reason I'm wondering is if we, John, if we sacrificed the holding up the rooftop discharge water, in other words, you just let it go out, let's say you did that. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. That way you'd have a swale that could be available if the water could be used for that. If you, essentially what you have here is sort of a swale along the side of the building. You could then use it for infiltration. And you could do the actual, perhaps even the discharge could be at closer to the street end, and then you could run a pipe from that out. In other words, you could use the length of what you're proposing here. I don't know if this works.
I'm following you.
I don't know if I'm following me. Okay, but you'll help.
But bring the water from the parking lot.
Bring the water
into
from-
this whole left side of the building.
Into the whole left side of the building and actually have the discharge
Under the
port.
how do you get it under the building?
Well, you have to have it flow that way. You have to, if it could be done,
No, along
This is
the,
higher than this, though.
well, you could lower this.
Can it be done?
yeah.
Well, there's a business next door though, too, right? That you wouldn't,
It's pretty close, too.
In other words, I'm proposing changing the grading of that, I don't know what you call it, infiltration basin, and have it in the reverse direction. Essentially, I don't know if there's enough elevation to convey water into essentially that infiltration basin, with the deepest part of it being at the reverse end, and then have a pipe go underneath or something like that and discharge back into the wetland, into the
the pipe would
river.
have to like,
So the
Yeah.
pipe would go under the swale.
Right, right,
Reverse pitch.
I think
So
you'd
the
have to also be
Swale would go
careful.
like this, pipe would go like this, the river's over here.
right.
You'd have to make sure that that swale could contain the amount of water from that parking lot and not overflow into the property next to it, because that, the business is right, right there.
I can look at it, I don't think the gradients are
Lots
gonna
of
work,
cars
it's
and
pretty
stuff.
flat out there.
Right.
And this site, even on this side of the building here, pitches from here to here, so from here to here, you have maybe 2 feet drop from the front to the
Yeah,
back
I was
of the
thinking
building.
I was thinking of reversing that drop, and
So
essentially.
that's, and then to grade, so this site over here pitches 2 feet from the front to the back. So now you're talking maybe about a wall over here to get, to reverse the grade, because you can't catch the slope before you get to the fence. There's a
Right.
fence here,
You don't
so.
want to be doing that stuff in the floodplain. You don't want to be building walls or
No,
filling and
no.
changing grades in the floodplain.
No, and I understand that. I was only asking to think about it.
I mean, I can do a quick check of the grades, but I suspect that the proximity of the building, the proximity of the adjacent property would preclude that option. But I will look at it.
Well,
Now,
we might be able to get some of the water from the parking lot over to that swale and vegetate it.
The other alternative I was thinking of is whether some type of sort of like a level spreading overflow thing where the water goes in and comes out. It would be like an LID feature. Along the length here.
Basically behind what's.
Yeah, behind this. In other words, instead of pea stone that could get clogged up, that way you could have, essentially it'd be like this. And then it would then like this, a little bit of a rim and overflow. And it could capture the stuff, if it was done right, I think it could capture some of the stuff. And then, because it would be overflow, sort of an overflow type thing. And would that be worthwhile considering?
I mean, ideally, the pea stone trench is supposed to work like that.
It is.
It's supposed to fill up and then
But what
overflow.
I heard Ed say, that it would be perhaps clogging up.
Right.
So
Right. There's a maintenance
this would avoid that, because this way you could see it if it was filling up and you could just do maintenance. And it would be even less expensive to construct, maybe, I don't know.
And yours would be vegetative?
It would be vegetated.
Yeah, which would be a little more treatment.
I'll look at that.
If you could do that up here and then this slope a little bit down here goes over to there, yeah.
I mean, if it was less expense, I'm sure your client might say, take a good look at that one.
Still basic.
Well, just a little more context, I mean,
Right.
this site's been
Yeah.
vacant for however many years it's been, and, we've actually already spent a lot of money on asbestos removal and cleanup of that site, as well as.
Hopefully not into that dumpster right by the river.
No, it was all disposed of properly, we had the DEP permits, that was all taken care of properly.
Right, right.
Our business is only about 3.5 years old in Burlington already on Middlesex Turnpike, and a little bit of context around the situation, the time is very critical for us as well. My lease was actually up in June with 3rd Ave, 4th Ave right there with Nordblum. So, we're on a very, very tight timeline right here, so I definitely want to do everything in the best way possible for conservation and for everything that we want to do for redevelopment of the town as well. A little bit more context, we're adding solar panels. We're planning to do solar panels on top of the entire roof to fill the entire roof with whatever we can fit. So we are doing additional things for conservation that I would like to add to the context here.
It's just that Vine Brook is part of the aquifer, and I think that's what's kind of makes this a sensitive site.
No, I totally understand. We went to the Fisheries and Wildlife as well. We got that letter.
Sure.
We're trying to do everything we possibly can, but we've been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and, we'd appreciate any expediency that we can get from the
What are you
community.
doing with snow removal?
So we haven't gotten that far yet, but it was going to be contracted out to a contractor, so I think what we can have is Bree can help us get that for the planning board, which we have to do anyways, and we can forward that plan along as we get that available.
Is that something too, that parking lot that's been sanded during the winter months? Snow and ice?
I don't think that site has been maintained for 15 or 20 years at all, period. The parking lot is all cracked. There's sand that's coming up through the parking lot already. That entire building, that entire site has not been maintained for
I'm
probably.
just looking at incompletion, or back to that pea stone question, if you're throwing sand across the parking lot, that's where it's gonna end up.
Yeah, no, I don't think we would necessarily do that, but I think it would be more along the lines of plowing. Not necessarily any chemicals or anything like that.
but it's such a confined area too, it can be very tempting to just push the snow over the edge, when you plow. So we do have, it's one of our biggest concerns, I think, here.
Larry, I just have a
Sure, please do.
Are you done?
Yes, please.
I just want to understand the loading dock. So when trucks come to this new proposed loading dock, they'll be coming down the drive from Bedford Street. Are they just backing up into that platform there and then pulling back? I mean, how are they actually maneuvering in there? It looks like kind of a tight space.
Yeah, so I think, Bree, you had done that little loop or turnaround inside that parking area, is that accurate?
I might have
I
missed-
haven't done it yet.
Okay.
We have software that could simulate the truck movements.
Yep.
So ideally, it would be great if the truck could back in. That's difficult for
On that
for
a busy street.
some, right, because you'd have to back in from the street,
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
and it takes a pretty skillful driver to do that.
I actually don't, I mean, that street has a lot of traffic,
Yeah.
I'm not sure the town would let you do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could bring the truck in here, ideally, and turn, there's enough space in here to turn this way and then back in. to the-
Okay, so they'd be backing in, so the back would be kind of adjacent to, I'm just thinking about how they unload, because I was looking at the 6-foot and the 10-foot and wasn't sure how the truck was going in there. I think there needs to be some barrier at behind that, because I could see a problem where the truck might back up into the swale or into the infiltrator back there, because it's kind of tight, that there just needs some kind of barrier back there to try to keep the truck from going over the loading dock.
You're saying on this side here?
Yeah, the back side.
Between the, yeah.
Where the where you've got your, the basin and the swale, or the pea stone
The
thing.
loading dock itself should be a barrier, though, shouldn't it? The way I think we've set it up, the loading dock itself would be blocking any
It
truck or
blocks it.
anything from.
So there's gonna be, it's not just a concrete pad?
No,
it's-
it'll actually be a 4-foot high
Okay,
loading dock.
all right, okay, all right, I understand now, okay, sorry. Got it.
And just to reiterate, it's the same volume, same size as the one that's being removed.
Yep.
So
It is.
the
Yeah, that's
floodplains
fine,
are large.
okay,
And there are calculations in the notice of intent for it to show that.
okay, got it. All right.
Okay. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak? All right, so is there anyone, no one's in the audience for this, I assume? No? Okay.
I do have another question. So the stone diaphragm area, would that be physically placed in an area that's currently pavement? Or would it be within that little vegetated strip between the bank and the existing pavement? Because there is a strip of shrubs between.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, where you see the current edge of pavement, there's actually, the current edge of pavement, the stone diaphragm is proposed within that existing paved area. There's a small piece where you see the parallel parking spaces that extends beyond that. But that's offset by when you go further, where there aren't any spaces, I'm saying further to the east, you could see that we're providing additional grass space there. So it, with the exception of that one little area that's maybe a foot or two beyond the edge of pavement.
It all looks like it's beyond the edge of pavement to me, but is that line not
So there's
accurate?
two edges of pavement.
Yeah.
There's the proposed,
Right, but if you look at the existing, and you follow that line, isn't it right here?
So the existing edge of pavement is denoted by EOP in
Right.
gray
Yep.
letters.
Yep.
Um,
Is it that solid line underneath it that's the edge?
Yes, so if you look at the infiltration basin, you can see right by the 20.7 elevation.
Yep.
120.7, sorry. Just below that, so the EOP is basically underlining, it
Right.
underlines the EOP, that's the edge of pavement.
Right, but isn't the blue line on the other side of that?
That's the erosion control line.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's right, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
Got
so
it.
that's fine.
thank you.
Okay,
And but could you also, so you've got these areas,
So it is.
these areas that you just referred to as grass areas, could you propose some shrubs there?
Planting? You're saying in the little triangle areas?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
native shrubs?
Yeah.
It'll be a little something.
yeah, definitely.
That helps.
you know, the more I think about it, you're filling up those pea stone things with 1-inch stone. And if those things fill up with sand and stuff like that, I mean, they're probably never gonna be cleaned out and reclaimed. The stuff will just go off the parking lot like sheet flow at that point.
So if it fills up with
I mean,
sediment,
so
it'll start
you're
growing
almost,
vegetation.
if you can, you're almost better off with something you can see, so if it's not working right, you can just quickly clean it out. It might make, and it'll be possibly less expensive to do, a vegetated thing. So, I mean, once you look at it, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't design it for you.
No,
but-
we will look at that.
all right. All right, so what I have for the list here is a plan that marks the snow storage, I heard that. Fencing or something to prevent, if there is some kind of structure to handling the stormwater, something to prevent cars from going on top of it, you know, maybe some type of parking lot break of some sort. We're gonna move the construction dumpster, I think I heard. There was a concern about the pea stone clogging, and you're going to look at that regarding alternatives. And the alternatives might include an overflow level, vegetated level spread type thing, or perhaps taking some runoff into the basin. You'll look at that as well.
Vegetating the basin.
And vegetating the basin, okay?
So if we take the runoff into the basin, then we will have to vegetate it.
Right.
That's correct.
That's all I had. Did you folks have anything else? Did you hear anything else?
Isn't the part about the cars not backing onto the structure dealt with by the parking dock, or loading dock itself?
The parking spaces are on the other, but aren't the parking spaces, you know, you have the loading dock, but then cars come in and park.
Right.
And they can park beyond that.
The car's parked way down to the right. Those cars, when they back up to get out,
Cars, not the truck.
could back up right over that
Because
drainage
they're not
ditch.
near the loading
I
dock.
thought they were talking about here, getting into there.
Oh, are you talking about getting into
I thought
the,
that's- I may have
pea
misunderstood.
stone area or into the?
Keystone area.
Keystone area, backing up into the structure.
How would the cars get in there? There's a loading dock that's
No,
gonna
no,
be
no,
in the
no,
way.
not
No,
there.
not the infiltration.
Backing into this.
Way up the other side,
Oh.
the far right-hand end there, those
The regular
cars
parking lot, yeah.
Gotcha, sorry.
go right over that. Yeah,
Okay.
especially if it's flush.
All right. So, the next meeting will be, what's the date?
6th.
September 26th. All right. John, if you think they get some changes in and it's looking good, you think it might issue at the next meeting?
Yeah, it's a good possibility.
All right, so we might issue a
open with
permit
the
at the
planning
next
board?
meeting and get you on your way.
You open with the planning board?
Next week?
October 3rd, is it?
The planning board?
October 3rd.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what's the nature of the Mac Designer hardware? What do they do?
Oh, yeah, we sell cabinet hardware, door hardware, hinges, basically anything kind of metal in your house. People do kitchen remodels, bathroom models. It's gonna be a large showroom. So we're already existing on Middlesex Turnpike right now, so it's an existing business. We're just relocating because our lease is up.
Will be manufacturing on site or just a show?
No, it's just a showroom and everything's ordered from
Storage.
vendors.
So the hardware for closing the cabinets and things that?
Yes, yep, hinges and things like that as well.
Okay, is it retail or wholesale or both?
A little bit of both, yes.
Nice.
It's good to know you're there.
Yeah, come and visit.
All right.
My wife will be all over there. She loves the knobs and the handles and
Some really nice displays there.
All right, sounds good.
So what is your submittal requirement for revisions? Do you have a 5-day submittal requirement or ahead of the hearing?
Yeah, John?
So the meeting's on Thursday, September 26th, so you should try to get it to us best case scenario, the Friday before.
Okay. Great, I can do that.
So we'll put you on the agenda for the next meeting. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, and
Thank you.
we'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay, we got one more thing to sign, folks, before you disappear.
So can we close this if they haven't gone to the planning board yet? Or-
Can.
And then if
Can.
the planning board had significant changes, we'd have to reopen.
Yeah, it's not likely the planning board's gonna change anything.
Well,
There's
I
nothing
mean,
they can do with it.
Let's say do something,
we'll see, that'll be their decision, actually.
they want to park behind the building.
Okay, so next is planning board comments. Do we have any comments to give to the planning board?
No, they're done with it, they've already finished with the highway projects, so.
All right. Subcommittee and staff reports and updates. All right. Next meeting, September 26th and October 10th. Let the office know if you can't make it. Other business, discuss and vote on remote access policy. Who's taking the lead on that?
So I sent it around, the selectmen did vote to accept that policy, and so it's up to each individual board, whether or not you want to allow remote access. So if, say, a commissioner wasn't here, we'd set them up on whatever, Skype or whatever on the table so that they could participate.
So you just see their head sitting on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think our technology is there yet to really make that a reasonable option, because not only does the person have to be able to see, but the people in the audience would have to be able to hear what the person is saying if they're participating.
That person cannot be used to establish a quorum.
Right,
You have to have a quorum here anyway.
correct,
Oh, yes.
Right.
Quorum must be present
Oh.
in flesh.
yeah.
So it's just a nightmare waiting to
Yeah,
happen.
I just don't really see any reason for the commission to adopt it.
If it would establish a quorum, then it might occasionally be useful, but it can't. So-
Right,
We can always reconsider it, too, at a later
right,
date.
at any time, sure.
All right, so do we need to take a vote, a negative vote, or just don't vote?
A no vote means that you're not adopting the policy, so that's fine.
All right, can I have a motion to indicate that the Conservation Commission is not adopting the remote access policy for the commission's business at this time?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of a no vote?
I'm abstaining, I don't really care. I mean, it doesn't, I've seen, I've been on other meetings and things where you do remote and it works fine. I mean,
But
I
for
don't see
public
the-
hearings, it's a little different than
Yeah,
just a
well,
meeting somewhere.
but I don't see the need for it, but, if they, for some reason they had to adopt it, it wouldn't bother me, so I don't feel strongly about it to vote against it or for it, so I'm not voting.
Okay, all right, you are, how do they say, duly recorded.
Okay,
There you go.
so I just have is there a reason why other things are single-sided? Especially
I
with
know-
especially with the group that we
I
told
know-
them to double-side it, and we gave them single-sided findings.
know.
and-
I know that Lisa's been having problems with the copier
Copier.
skipping pages and whatnot. That's why we had decisions missing pages several times, so that's what it
Probably
is.
just easier to make sure they all get,
Maybe they can
they'll
fix
happen.
the copier, and save paper.
It's a new copier, too.
Is there anything going on at town meeting of particular interest?
So, no, the only real interesting thing on the town meeting is that there is an article to amend the PDD for Northwest Park to allow an additional 300 units of housing. So they built the two apartment buildings, the Huntington and the whatever, and now they want
The
to come.
Newbury?
What is it?
The Huntington and the Newbury? I'm just
No.
saying, they're going with a Boston theme, maybe.
It's a northeastern kind of, anyway.
Tremont, it's the Tremont.
Is it the Tremont?
Yes.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tremont.
So they want to build another additional 300 units with 16% of them designated as affordable senior housing, yeah.
We just invited all town meeting members to a open house at the Huntington for a tour of the building and discussion of this project.
Did you go?
It's just, the invitation just came today. It'll be before the next town meeting.
Which is like in a week and a half.
Yeah, I think it's next week. It's the,
So are those buildings currently rental? Is that what they are?
Yes.
They're not condos?
No,
And the proposed building will be rental also.
correct.
The pitch is to get employees in the business area there, to be able to work there. As they're saying, it's a lot of their high-tech companies down there have a lot of millennial-type employees, and many of them like to live and work and play all in the same area. Some of them don't even have cars. They just call an Uber if they need to ride somewhere else, but they'd rather bicycle or walk to work, and that they could easily fill very quickly 300 more units with employees of the
Well,
area.
they'll have cars.
Oh, but
They'll have cars.
Could we
It's
get
one thing to
could we
live
get
without a
bike
car in the
path out of
city,
that
it's
project?
different living out here without a car.
I don't know where it's gonna go. They haven't physically said where it's going to be put yet, they're just trying to change the zoning issue, is to allow, because the previous one said up to.
Yeah, so this is not the
300 units or
project,
something.
this is the PDD permit.
Yes, instead of saying up to 300 units, they wanted to say
Yeah,
up to
got it.
600.
I see,
Are any of
interesting.
those gonna be net neutral, the buildings?
Question. I like the fact that this last one's gonna cover the roof with as many solar panels as you can put on it. That's great.
Okay, is there anything else?
Nope.
All right, could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, please?
Second.
All in favor?
You.
That was